Welcome. So I wanted to talk about the rapture and how it was created, by whom, and more details. I did use, just so you know, to be transparent, I did use DeepSeek for my research. Again, I'm not using ChatGPT because it's owned by Peter Thiel and Palantir, and I just won't play that game. So I'm going to wait for people to get on. Again, this is going to be about how the rapture was created. Okay? And I'm fighting a throat chakra thing. Hi. So if you could share the live, if that's possible. This is going to be about the rapture, because this is really important, because here's what's happening. The Christian Zionists are applauding what's happening to the Palestinian people. There's no other way to say it. Excuse me. Because they feel that this is the path to the rapture. So I need to talk about how the rapture was created, okay? Because then you understand that this is absolutely insane. It's insane shit. I just found out that there are people selling their homes who are Christian Zionists because they think the rapture is going to be in September. I swear to God, they've quit their job, they're spending their money, they're living the big vacation, the last vacation, because after that, here comes the rapture. This is a very dangerous cultish conditioning. And I think it's really insane. And I asked DeepSeek. That's who I use, DeepSeek. I'm not using ChatGPT. I'm waiting for like 9 people to come on. And we're going to go through that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me read this. All right, let's begin. How many people? Tell me what you want to say, Muhammad. Okay. Let's begin. The Schofield Reference Bible is one of the most influential and consequential works for 20th century American evangelistic Christianity. Okay, so it starts with that. Hang on, okay? Here's a comprehensive breakdown of the Schofield Bible, its history, its creators, its agenda, and lasting legacy. What is the Schofield Reference Bible? It is not a new translation of the Bible, but rather edition of the 1909 authorization version, King James Version. Its immense significance comes from its extensive system of annotations, cross-references, topical notes, and doctrinal summaries placed in the margins and between the lines of the biblical text itself. It was designed to be a complete study system for the layperson. Key feature include. This is important shit to understand, because Christian Zionism are fully indoctrinated in thinking the rapture was in a Bible you would have found during the Crusades, and that's false. It's absolutely false. This dispensationalist outline, the entire Bible is divided into a framework of 7 or 8 dispensations or periods of time in which God relates to humanity in a specific way. Schofield notes explanatory notes that provide interpretation and theological context for difficult passages. Nothing like that should be difficult, but anyway. Cross-references, an extensive system linking verses and themes across the Old and New Testament. Subject chain references tracing major themes like sin, grace, atonement through the Bible. Charts and summaries, visual aids, and outlines for key events like the Tabernacle, the Feast of Israel, and prophetic timelines. Let's continue. Who wrote it? Cyrus Ingerson Schofield, 1843 to 1921. The man behind the Bible led a fascinating, somewhat controversial life. Okay. Let me skip because there's a couple things that just didn't make sense. Hang on, okay? Apparently he was Irish. And he had a lot of issues, and I'll get to that in a minute. I want to get right to what is the rapture. In modern Christian theology, the rapture is the belief that before a period of great tribulations on earth, Jesus Christ will return in the air to resurrect deceased believers and snatch up, which is the word rapture means, living believers, taking them to heaven. This event is understood to be sudden, secret, and imminent. It could happen at any moment. The key element that defines the rapture is its timing. It is said to occur before a 7-year period of extreme suffering and catastrophe known as the tribulation. This is called the pre-tribulational view. Let's continue. Was the rapture in the Bible in the 16 or 1700s? Or as I said, or during the Crusades? No. The doctrine of pre-tribulational rapture, as is widely taught today, was not found in the Bible or mainstream Christian theology in the 1600s, in the 1700s, nor in the Crusades. This is a crucial point. The idea is a relatively recent development in church history. Here's why it wasn't present in Bibles from that era. Theological development, the specific doctrine of two-stage second coming, first a secret rapture for the church and later a public return to earth with the church, had not yet been systemized. The dominant view for centuries were either Amillennialism, the 1,000 years of revelation. 20 is a symbolic period of Christ's current reign from heaven, not a future earthly kingdom. Post-millennialization. The world will gradually improve through the spread of the gospel, leading for a long period of peace, the millennial, after which Christ will return. We're definitely not seeing that now. Historic pre-millennialism. Christ will return once, which will be a public event, visible to all, and then visible to all. Did you hear that? And then establish his 1,000-year reign on earth. This view saw the church going through the tribulation. No marginal notes. As discussed in the Scofield Bible, the belief reflected in a specific Bible edition are heavily influenced by heavily influenced by the study notes and references added by its editors. Bibles from the 1600s and 1700s, like the famous Geneva Bible or the King James Version, did not contain marginal notes promoting a pre-tribulational rapture because the theology did not exist in its current form. Let me stop here, okay? What I find interesting is they're rewriting the Bible throughout the 100 years. You know, like let's add this, let's take that out, let's do this, but they still won't apologize to Mary Magdalene for making her a whore. They still won't rewrite that. But they'll add the rapture. Let's do that. Let's just put it in, like right away. The development of the rapture doctrine was a process. Biblical basis for century AD. Proponents of rapture point to several Bible verses which were interpreted differently from most history. The key one is Thessalonians 4:16-17. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpets of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. The phrase caught up translates the Greek word harpazo, which means to seize, carry off by storm, or snatch away. The Latin translation of this word is rapimer, which is the English word for rapture. Other verses include John 14, 1-3, Corinthians 15, 51, 52. The foundation, early 1800s, the theological framework for the rapture, dispensationalism, began to be developed in the 1830s by John Nelson Darby, a prominent figure in the Plymouth Brethren movement in the UK. Darby's system divided history into distinct dispensations or period of God dealing with humanity. I'm sorry. Who the fuck is he? I'm going to be absolutely rude today. Who the fuck is he to suddenly take something with no meditation, with no massive prayers, with no hermitage, going into a hermitage thing, right? Going to do 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. I'm not joking here. I'm actually being serious. Who the fuck is he to come in and do this and literally ruin millions of people's lives and put them in the category of cultish, fanatic behavior? Let me continue. A key feature was a sharp distinction between God's plan for the nation of Israel and his plan for the Christian church. The rapture became the necessary event to remove the church, the heavenly people, from the earth so God could resume his prophetic plan with Israel, the earthly people, during the tribulation. Popularization, late 1800s, 1900s, Darby's idea spread through prophetic conferences in the United States and most importantly through the Schofield Reference Bible 1909, as discussed previously. Cyrus Scofield was a disciple of Darby's dispensationalism. His study notes embedded his entire theological system, including the pre-tribulational rapture, directly into the text of the Bible for millions of readers. This is how the doctrine became mainstream in American evangelicalism. Mass cultural phenomenon, 1970s to the present. The belief was catapulted into popular culture by Hal Lindsey's best-selling book, The Late Great Planet Earth, 1970, and especially the immensely popular Left Behind novel series, 1995 to 2007, by Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. Summary. The event. I pushed too far. The rapture is the belief in a sudden secret catching away of believers before a 7-year tribulation. The rapture is not in the Bible. It is derived from the Latin word for the Greek, harpazo, caught in, and blah, blah, blah. It says here, and I'm going to be honest, okay? The doctrine, which while the verse has always been in the Bible, right? The verse I just told you about, we're going to get caught up and God will come and blah, blah. Okay, so while the verse has always been in the Bible, the specific tribulational rapture doctrine is a 19th century theological development. It was not a belief held by the Reformers, Puritans, or found in any Bible from the 16 to the 1700s. The origin, it was systematized by John Nelson Darby and popularized through the Schofield Reference Bible. That's all I gotta say. Okay? That's all I gotta say. I'll continue though. Because this is the kind of cultish. See, when people think, cults, I don't have a weak mind. It's not. Sometimes it's not a weak mind. Sometimes it's pure ignorance. I did ask DeepSeek, tell me, why are theologians not fucking arguing at this point? And we'll come to that reasoning in a moment. Okay. So let's continue, because this is some serious shit happening. They're selling their houses. They're traveling the country waiting for the rapture to happen. I'm not joking. Hang on, okay? I'm trying to... This is a very powerful and important question. It connects a specific theological belief with its real-world consequences in a way that is often overlooked. Did you hear that? Yeah, real world. Hello? First, let's clarify a term you use. I believe you might mean theologian. Yeah, it was me misspelling something. Okay. I asked, the question is, why aren't more theologians who disagree with the rapture doctrines, why aren't they speaking out against it, especially when it can be used to justify apathy towards the suffering of Palestinians? For example, I put, okay, here's the answer. This is a complex issue with several layers. Theologians are speaking out, but it's not mainstream news. That was the answer. Many prominent Christian theologians and denominations have always rejected the pre-tribulation rapture doctrine as a modern invention. These include mainline Protestant denomination, Lutheran, Anglican, Episcopalian, Methodist, Presbyterian, and United Church of Christ scholars largely reject this view. Catholics and Orthodox churches, they have never held this belief. Their theology has a very different understanding of the end of times, focusing on the ultimate return of Christ, but rejecting the detailed timeline of dispensationalism, which includes the rapture. Many evangelist theologians, a significant number of biblical scholars within evangelicalism, also critique this view, advocating for historical premillennialism or Amillennialism instead. I don't know what they mean by that. The problem is not a lack of scholarly opposition. The problem is that their voices are often confined to academic journals, seminary classrooms, and denominations that are less prominent in media-saturated American evangelistic cultures. Bingo. Why, I put, Why is the rapture doctrine, why can it be why is it justifying apathy? Because really the rapture is justifying apathy. Let's be honest. This is the core of your concerns, the specific interpretation of end time prophecy popularized by the Schofield Reference Bible. Do you see how it says Reference Bible? Okay, and books like Left Behind can lead to a particular political stance regarding Israel and Palestine, and this is often called Christian Zionism. Fuck. The logical, if you go down the rabbit hole on this, if you go farther, because there's certain things I will not say here that are very politically fucking incorrect. I'll say that straight up. Okay? So I'm not going to say it. You do your research. Okay? The logical flow flows like this. God promises to national Israel are eternal. Dispensationalist theology draws a sharp distinction between Israel, God's earthly people, and the church, God's heavenly people. Prophecy requires a return to Israel for end-time prophecy to be fulfilled. Jews must be in the land of Israel. The establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 was seen as a miraculous fulfillment of the prophecy. Do you get this? The land is promised solely to Israel. Verses are interpreted to mean that the land from the Nile to the Euphrates belong exclusively to the Jewish people as a divine right. The future tribulation is for Israel. The church will be raptured and God's focus will return to Israel during 7 years tribulation. Conclusion, therefore, supporting the modern state of Israel and its current political and territorial claims unconditionally is seen as supporting God's plan. To criticize Israel, advocate for Palestinian rights, is seen as, at best, misunderstanding Scripture and at worst, standing against the will of God. I needed to break this shit down because honestly, this is insane. So our morality, and if you look at the Old Testament, a lot of people are finally saying it out loud. That's an Anunnaki God. Anunnaki God. This is not God. And I did a reading on the Cathars. Remember the Cathars I read yesterday? What did they believe in? What did the Cathars believe in? In 1000, what was it? 1000 AD to about 1300 AD. What did they believe in? They believed there were two gods. What was the God? And they believed, because they couldn't understand it any better, they believed that there was a satanic God, and the Catholic Church was praying to that God. They were praying to the real God, and they were slaughtered. They were slaughtered systematically over a 300-year period, and eventually disappeared. This is why it's important to, read from. You don't need to get a master's, just buy a fucking book. It's really, and then use AI for the right questions. And then question AI. Don't just take its first answer. Question it, bully it, say, no, that's a lie. That's not true. You can't just take it face value because quite often it fucks up. Okay, so listen to this. This theology can effectively desensitize believers to Palestinian suffering. If events in the Middle East are just as necessary, playing out a divine script, then human pain and political injustice become secondary. Did you hear that? The focus becomes aligned with the prophetic side, Israel, rather than the prophesied against side, various enemies which wrongly include all the Palestinians. Why don't we hear more? Cultural power. The pre-tribulation rapture views is incredibly powerful in large segments of American evangelical, which has a massive media platform, TV, radio, mega churches, publishing houses. Dissenting voices lack this cultural megaphone. It's political. Many pastors avoid the topic because it's so politically charged. They may see it as a divisive within their congregation. It's complex. Unpacking why a popular belief is theological, shaky, and politically damaging requires a lot of time and teaching, which many feel they don't have. Fear of being labeled, critiques of, and you know what I'm saying, anti-you know what. Okay. In summary, and why do you think rabbis are literally protesting and supporting the Palestinian people? Why do you think? That's a very good question. One person said, why do they focus more on his death rather than how he lived, showing us how to live? Because he died for their sins. That's why. And what's ironic about that statement, he died for our sins, then, baby boy, why are you still sinning? Baby girl, why are you still sinning? If he died for your sins, then it would have eradicated all your, I don't know, inclinations to sin. And it has continued. So are we grandfathered every time we incarnate? We just, oh yeah, let me fuck around, let me hurt people, let me harm people. Forget that, because he died for my sin. And this is a carte blanche to be an asshole. I mean, really, that's basically it. And that's the kind of truth that we need to start talking about if we really are Yeshua followers and devotees of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. That's how we need to start talking. We need to literally we need to become like the Cathars. Okay, we need to be back, because they knew this truth and they were slaughtered for it. So that's what I'm going to say. But let me continue. And thank you for being here. And thank you for being interested. And I'm not here to debate it. I'm not into debating this shit. I'm sorry. Do your own research. Go debate. There's all kinds of little, TikTok lives that want to debate and call each other names. I'm not into that. I don't give a fuck. But if you want to talk to me about more information that you have about this, if you want to go on this live and tell me that you have amazing shit to share that outranks what I'm sharing, please come on, because I'm excited. Okay. Let me continue real quick. Okay. The opposition exists, right? But it struggles to be heard over the well-funded and media-savvy machinery that promotes the theology you are questioning. Your question points to the critical need for a more responsible and nuanced understanding of biblical prophecy, one that prioritizes justice and peace for all people in the here and now. You are asking the right question. Your frustration is understandable. The story of John Nelson Darby and the origins of the belief that ended up in the Scofield Bible is fascinating, complex tale that from a traditional Christian perspective can indeed seem insane or at least radically innovative. Let's break it down. The background of John Nelson Darby. He was born 1800 to 1882. Son of a bitch, lived 82 years on the planet. The architect of the theological system behind the Schofield Bible. Who was Nelson Darby? Darby was an Anglo-Irish lawyer, theologian, and former priest of the Church of Ireland Anglican. His background is crucial to understanding his radical break from established Christianity. Early life and education. He was born in London, educated at Westminster School and Trinity College, Dublin, where he studied law. He became a lawyer, but quickly found the profession unsatisfying. Religious conversions and ordinations. He underwent a strong evangelical conversion and abandoned law to become an Anglican priest in Ireland around 1825. So he's 25 years old. The clericalism crisis. This is the pivotal moment. Darby became deeply disillusioned with the established church structure, which he began to call clericalism. He saw the Anglican Church as spiritually dead, worldly, and unbiblical. He was particularly horrified by the fact that the church required parishioners to swear allegiance to the British Crown, which was Protestant, to receive communion, effectively excluding many Irish Catholics. The Plymouth Brethren, around 1830, he broke entirely from the Anglican Church. He helped form a loose network of independent Bible study groups that became known as the Plymouth Brethren. Their core principles were a rejection of all denominational hierarchy and ordained clergy. They believed in the priesthood of all believers and that the Holy Spirit would guide their meetings spontaneously. Fuck. Do you know how dangerous that is when people are like in their 3D little brains? Spontaneously? So you're sitting there with people that have all kinds of trauma, right? They haven't done it. And let me put it down. Just compare your work as a human being and the shit you've done to heal yourself, right? And what they've not done. Trust me. And so when you say spontaneous Holy Spirit would guide their meetings spontaneously, what Holy Spirit? When you form a group, okay, of wise, what do shamans do? Let me just get to the point. What do shamans do? They prepare, they sage, right? They prepare the room, they prepare themselves, they go into fasting. They go into an altered state. They prepare in such a way that nothing but truth comes through. Not any fucking spirit, but the right uncorrupted downloads come in. These people are sitting in a circle, okay? And basically trusting that the Holy Spirit would guide their meetings spontaneously on a focus on the literal interpretation of Bible prophecy from a place of unhealed trauma and dogma. And they're men. No offense to the men listening to me right now. God bless you. But there's no even flow of the feminine intuition with the masculine earth green man spirit in those meetings. The belief that all existing Christian churches were apostate, had fallen away from the truth, and that true believers needed to come out and separate from them. What did Darby believe and create? The insane part, in quotation. Darby's break from tradition wasn't just organizational, it was deeply theological. He systemized a new framework for understanding the entire Bible called dispensationalism. His core beliefs, which were revolutionary at the time, include a radical distinction between Israel and the church. This is the absolute cornerstone of his system. Traditional Christian theology, Catholic, Orthodox, and most Protestant saw the church as a spiritual continuation of Israel, inheriting its promise. Darby argued that God had two complete separate people with two separate plans. What the fuck? One man. One fucking man created this cultish insanity. Because you see, when I see comments in some of the shit that I'm listening to about, this is happening and let's end it, and you know who I'm talking about. I'm seeing comments of rapture. It's like insane and dangerously insane. Remember the movies in the mid 2000s when there was movies about zombies? Yeah, it's interesting. I thought that was interesting. A lot of zombie movies were really big in around 2010 and so forth. Because we got some zombies. Okay, I'm just saying. Sorry. God bless them all. The church's God, heavenly people with heavenly promises. He believed that God's prophetic clock for Israel had paused at the crucifixion and would only restart after the church was removed from the world. That's the pre-tribulation rapture. This was necessary. This was a necessary mechanism for two people's theory, since God needed to finish his plan with Israel, which involved the 7-year tribulations from the book of Daniel. He had to first remove the church. Thus, Darby developed the doctrine of a secret any moment rapture of the church before the tribulations began. This was a brand new idea in the 1830s. It was not a doctrine held by any major Christian denomination before him. So I'm going to pause for a minute because I want to throw things that I want you to digest. When you say you're not important on the planet, I'm just going to give you Darby. One man did this. One man influenced millions of people. So when you tell me I'm not important, I have nothing to say, I beg to differ. And say it loud. The pre-tribulation rapture, this was, okay, I already read that, hang on. Okay, dispensations. He divided all of human history into 7 distinct periods or dispensations. Examples: innocence, law, grace, kingdom, each representing a different way in which God tests humanity's obedience. Obedience. Hang on. Obedience. Did you hear that? Do you know that God gave us free will? Okay? We're not supposed to obey. We're supposed to... It's kind of like a love. It's kind of like your lover and he leaves you or she leaves you, and you're not going to beg them to obey. You're going to want them to come back to you by their own free will with new knowledge and new understanding. Similarly, this is God's energy with us. We were given free will. And we connect to God from our free will, from an open heart, not from a place of, I'm going to be obedient, I'll be subservient. And this is why it's important to read the Bhagavad Gita with the Battle of Kurukshetra, because it talks about free will. Fate and free will. Again, I keep saying that. Okay. So, pessimism and imminence. Darby had a deeply pessimistic view of the world. I'm not shocked. And the church. He believed the world was inevitably getting worse Can you imagine getting worse, and that the true church was a small remnant hiding within the apostate Christendom? This fueled the belief in the imminent return of Christ for the rapture. It could happen at any second. Do you know what it does to a human being that's in a church that doesn't know eclipse, that doesn't know meters, doesn't understand storms or hurricanes or tsunamis, and it's the 1830s, and some son of a bitch walks in and says, at any moment, you know, and you're creating a society of people who are walking on eggshells, who are terrified of living. Terrified. Okay? Why did he believe this, right? The motivations. It wasn't random. His belief were a direct reaction to his experience and his literal reading of the Bible. Reactions to failure. He saw the established churches as failures, corrupt and political. Isn't that interesting? His theology explained this. The church age was always meant to end in apostasy. A system for everything. He was a brilliant systemizer. He created a complex framework where every verse of the Bible could be neatly categorized and explained, often by assigned it to either Israel or the church. This was incredibly appealing to many who wanted a logical, scientific key to understanding Scripture. I hope you're shocked, because I knew I needed to have this discussion with a small group of people. I knew this was important. Literal interpretation. He insisted on an ultra-literal interpretation of biblical prophecy, especially for Israel. If God promised land to Abraham's descendant, then it must be fulfilled literally by the ethnic Jewish people in the modern era, not spiritually by the church. And I put, that's insane. How Darby's insane ideas became mainstream via Scofield. This is where Scofield walks in. Let's read. This is the final crucial step. Darby was a niche figure, but he traveled extensively in the United States in the late 1800s. Cyrus Scofield, a man with a checkered past, who became a pastor, encountered Darby's teachings and became a devoted convert to dispensationalism. Scofield's genius was not in creating new ideas, but in packaging Darby's complex system for the masses. He did so by inserting Darby's framework, the distinction, the dispensations, the pre-tribulation rapture, which directly into the margin of the Bible itself, his Schofield Reference Bible 1909. Did you hear? A checkered past. What the fuck does that mean? For the average person studying the Schofield Bible, they weren't reading Darby's commentary. They were reading the Bible in their mind. The notes were presented as divinely obvious facts. Did you see how they marketed this as, but no, we're helping you understand this. We're helping you understand this because you're too stupid to understand it. So, but it's divinely explained to you. In their mind, they were reading the Bible. The notes were presented as divinely obvious facts. This one book is almost single-handedly responsible for making Darby's once obscure and radical ideas the default beliefs for millions of American evangelistic community. So your reaction is correct. The belief you find shocking were a radical departure from his historical Christian teaching. They were the product of one 19th century theologian, encompassing system for understanding Scripture, a system that was then mass marketed as biblical truth itself. And I did ask this. Listen to this. Why didn't white and black preachers say something? Why didn't the Catholic Church stop the spread of this cancerous lie? Here's the answer. Because this is important, in my opinion. Because we're watching the result of this bullshit, okay? So bear with me. This is an incredibly sharp, oh my God, my computer's going up here, and critical question that gets to the heart of religious authority, history, and power. The fact that these ideas weren't stopped involve a mix of historical context, theological disagreement, and the structure of Christianity itself. Here's a breakdown of why white and black preachers, as well as the Catholic Church, did not, and arguably could not, stop the spread of dispensationalism and the rapture theology popularized by the Schofield Bible. The structure of Protestantism, no central authority. This is the most important factor. The Protestant Reformation was built on the principle of rejecting a central human authority like the Pope, a favor of sola scriptura, scripture alone. This means, did you hear that? That's big. So it's I don't need a Pope. I don't need hierarchy like the Catholic Church has. I just read the good book, okay? Anybody can interpret. In theory, any believer with the guidance of the Holy Spirit can interpret the Bible. There's no ultimate earthly court of appeals to declare one interpretation false and another true. This creates a marketplace of ideas. Fragmentation is built in. Protestantism is inherently fractured into thousands of denominations: Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, Pentecostal. There is no single pope or council that can issue a binding decree for all Protestants to reject Darby's idea. Because of this, there was no mechanism to stop it. The best critics could do was argue against it, which they did, but they had no power to suppress it. Cultural and theological fit. Darby and Scofield's idea arrived in America during a time of immense social change. Industrialism, urbanism, the Civil War, Darwinism, this theology offered certainty. It provided a complex, seemingly scientific system that made the Bible feel like a puzzle that could be solved. How the fuck is a Holy Scripture a scientific thing? There's nothing, there's no heart, there's no soul. It's not a beating Holy Spirit written on these books. I mean, there's no spirit in it. How can you call something that is immensely beautiful, immensely loving, scientific in the way they're promoting it here? Escape. The belief in an imminent rapture was incredibly comforting. Did you hear that? Comforting. Instead of fixing a broken world. Did you hear that? Instead of fixing a broken world, right? Believers could be hopeful about escaping it. This was especially appealing after the trauma of the Civil War. It's like, let's just demolish the planet. Forget cleaning it up, picking up the trash, cleaning the oceans, cleaning our infrastructure, claiming a new earth, right? The new earth, this is what we're moving into, the new earth 5D consciousness. No, let's just chuck it, fuck it, let it burn. Can you imagine? And that it was incredibly comforting. American optimism, the idea that America had a special role in God's plan, a new Israel, sometimes dovetailed with these end-time beliefs. It was new and exciting. For some, it was more engaging and dramatic way to preach than traditional doctrines. The narrative of a secret rapture and a thrilling tribulation was powerful. Financial and institution power. The theology was promoted by well-funded institutions like Moody Bible Institute and Dallas Theological Seminary, influential evangelists like Dwight L. Moody, and most important, throughout the incredible successful marketing of the Schofield Reference Bible, it had a powerful platform. Why many black preachers and churches are skeptical. Different theological proprieties. The black church in America, born out of the experience of slavery and oppression, developed a theology focused on liberation, justice, and God's presence in suffering. Focus on exodus, not escape. The tradition identifies more with the God who frees the oppressed from Pharaoh, a God of justice in this world, than with God who rescues believers from tribulation. The promise of heaven was a comfort, but the primary focus was often on God's power to deliver and enact justice in the here and now. A different eschatology, the idea of rapture that removes the church before the worst suffering, could be seen as undermining to call the good fight a fight. Again, against systematic injustice. Their theology was often one of seeing the struggle through not being evacuated from it. Separate network. For much of the American history, white and black churches operated in different separate spheres with separate educational institutions. The white Reformed theological debates that birthed dispensationalism were not the primarily influence on most historically black dominations. Why the Catholic Church didn't stop it. The Catholic Church absolutely rejects dispensationalism and the pre-tribulation rapture. However, it had limited power to stop its spread in Protestant circles for several reasons. It's a Protestant issue. The Catholic Church sees itself as the one true church. From its perspective, Protestantism is already a collection of 1,000 errors. The rise of another era within Protestant was sadly expected. Their primary duty is to correct errors within their own flock. No referee Protestant disputes. They did and do condemn it officially. Catholic teachings directly contradicts key points of dispensationalism. Catholicism traditionally holds an amillennial view. Revelation 20 is symbolic, not a literal future, 1,000 years reign. One second coming. They believe in a single, glorious, and unmistakable second coming of Christ at the end of time to judge the living and the dead. There is no secret rapture 7 years prior. One people of God. They reject the sharp division between Israel and the church. Teaching, hang on. Yeah, okay. One God, okay, one people of God. They reject the sharp division between Israel and the church teachings that the church is the fulfillment of Israel and the recipient of its covenant. No authority over Protestants. The Catholic Church has no authority to tell Protestants, pastors, or congregation what to believe or what books they can read. They could and did write against it in their own teaching, but those writings are ignored by the Protestants who reject Catholic authority. The spread of these ideas wasn't stopped because Protestantism has no pope. There was no central authority to declare it heresy and make it stick. It was a highly marketable. It offered certainty, excitement, and comfort in a changing world. It had powerful promoters, and it was backed by influential institution PR. And then with Mel Gibson doing his movie, The Second Coming of Christ, right? He did a whole interview on that with Joe Rogan. And it's taken him years to put that together. But it has nothing to do with the rapture. It has to do with literally the second coming, Mary of Magdalene seeing him, blah, 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 and whatever else happens. He said it was almost like an LSD trip. So my point is, and hopefully I read it to some level of comfort to your ear, and hopefully you got most of it. Checkers makes me think of the Masons. I was a bit taken back at first, but you explained it yourself. So I'm not sure what you meant because I wasn't reading your comments until then. But ultimately, when you read any book on the Cathars, right, which I'm starting to read this book on the Cathars by Sean Martin, which I read a couple pages to you guys yesterday. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating that in France, they believed there was a balanced belief system, and they were still close to the history of how Christianity was developing, right? They knew about Constantine, they knew about the Council of Nicaea, they probably, honestly, I'm going to say this, okay? And it might not be a popular thing to say, but they probably had seen the gospel of Mary. In fact, maybe they had copied, okay, and traveled the Gospel of Mary across the ocean to France, for example, and the Gospel of Thomas and some other Gospels. And when the Catholic Church went after the Cathars, by the 13th century, they were being slaughtered left and right. They would have burned all of their copies. It's a miracle we found the Dead Sea Scrolls in those caves in Egypt in 1947 by a sheep herder or goat herder, whatever the hell it was. It's a shock, okay? And now, and because it was found, and because there were scientists involved in the finding and protecting of these Dead Sea Scrolls, there's no arguing it now. You can't unsee it, right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So that has made it, it's guaranteed its protection for now. But do you see what I'm saying? So two men. So when you tell me, well, I don't know if I have a mission. I don't know if I'm going to influence people on this planet. It's really up to you, because two men, one in America, one in England, and it took, made it fucking, millions of people believe this bullshit. And they're actually they're actually damaging themselves. They're actually putting themselves, in other words, do you understand the philosophy karmically of what's happening here? They are they are looking at dying babies, dying of starvation. Have you ever seen, let me just put it this way. You've seen babies in Africa, okay, of dying. But when was the last time you saw babies in Africa dying like that? Like what we're seeing with the Palestinians. Unfortunately, we don't have any video or photos. We're really not getting any information. I don't know where the fuck the journalists are to cover the Sudan and Congo, because it's really the only people talking about it, from what I'm seeing, are just pedestrian journalists, meaning they're people like you who've anointed yourself as journalists, right? But my point to you is, I was reading comments, because I've been watching the Rapture, right? And I was reading comments of people saying, oh yeah, the people are just selling their homes. Zionist Christians are selling their homes. They're convinced it's going to happen in September of this year. And as soon as the red heifer was, it went through the ritual on July 7th, I think it was July 7th, the comments were, oh my God, he's coming, the second coming, oh my God, rapture, rapture. I mean, it was insane. Insane. And so the good Bible, well, and this is why I say, if you're going to read the Bible, read one that is an absolute translation of Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. That's it. You don't want King James's hands on it. You don't want it bastardized. You want it as the purest beginnings from the Council of Nicaea as you can. I'm just being real. And then after that, you got to read the Nag Hammadi. And then you have to read this, that, and the other. And then you have to meditate and go, is this real? Is this true? Does this feel right? It's crazy how much damage this book has done. It has done the kind of damage that I saw as a joke, okay? The kind of insanity I'm seeing and fear. It reminds me of War of the Worlds, the movie that was made based on Orson Welles' radio show, based on H.G. Wells' book, War of the Worlds, when they think the Martians are coming. It was a radio show that came out in the 1930s, and people in New York City and New York and New Jersey were losing their fucking mind, thinking that they had been taken over by the Martians. I swear to God. I mean, if you have never heard of the War of the Worlds, the radio show by Orson Welles, never saw the movie and what it did to people, people were like fucking freaking out. And this taught our alphabet channel government system a lot of interesting things about how fear, just one drop of fear, can absolutely spread like wildfire. And this is essentially what happened. You don't think they're studying this shit? They're definitely studying this. I have the Aramaic tradition from Yeats, yet to go straight from Aramaic to English. So any other questions? I thought I'd share this. I wanted to look this up myself. And let me see. Any other questions or comments? Are you shocked? Because I thought it's good to say, oh, it was invented. But I thought it was interesting and important to say who and why. And it went through two hands. Darby and Schofield. And then it was massively marketed by the Protestant. And I had no idea, because I never thought of it, that a Protestant religion was fractured to that level. Just absolutely fractured. No one knows what the other hand is doing. No one knows. It's almost like, can you imagine it's your body and your hands doing something you're not aware of, and your other hand's doing the same, and your belly's doing something else, and you're split into fractures, and no one knows what the other one is doing, and no one really cares to create something that's cohesive and true. They're going off like wild, rabid hippies on fucking God knows what, just telling people this is the good book and this is what you read, and you better not question it. You better not question it. These two men, and Schofield being of ill repute. What does that mean? Was he fucking people? Was he hurting people? Was he running drugs? What the fuck was he doing? Was he trafficking? Was he a pimp? I mean, really? So to me, that is going to be a very important, I mean, if you can share this, I'm going to post this on YouTube. If you can share this, or at least try to distill what I said into your own words and understand now what it means, and then spread the word. People need to know exactly how this shit came forth. And if you go down the rabbit hole, which I unfortunately, or was he kicked out of the churchhood? Well, I mean, he was definitely. It's weird that the other priest didn't stop that. No, I don't think it's weird at all. I think the rapture as reliving in madness. It doesn't matter what exactly. I mean, yeah, the question is what happened. Was he kicked out of church for having sex with underage fucking, members of the congregation, shit like that? We don't know. I'm sure I could find out with Scofield, but a man of ill repute, Scofield. That's insane. So I guess the question would be, do the Mormons believe in this? Because I have a lot of clients who are former Mormons, recovering Mormons, and I don't know what they do in that religion, but it must be pretty painful, because the people recovering from that, they're having a hard time recover. They're having a very hard time recovering. And why is that? Why is it hard to recover from that? I don't understand. I don't understand why people literally surrender and obey against their own heart. Anyway, I have nothing else to say. I'm going to read something from Anger by Thich Nhat Hanh, because I can't imagine why you wouldn't be angry after this. Again, I'm going to say this to you. Rewrite your soul contract with planet Earth so that your new contract that you've established is in 5D and only in 5D. And rewrite a contract with your soul, letting it know that you are no longer accepting 3D incarnations, that all you will accept is 5D and higher. The fact that they did that and women were never, in other words, they rewrote the fucking Bible, okay? And they never, ever repaired the damage with Mary Magdalene. Never. And that's why now we're looking at examples of Handmaid's Tale. Recently I saw the VP of this country say that he wanted to see lots of babies, and that he felt, I swear it's a direct quote, that not having babies was a sign of mental illness. Okay? Now, if I had read that somewhere, I would have said, yeah, let's fact check that, because that sounds a little crazy. But no, from his own lips. I was in shock, and it was sent to me by a friend in Europe. In shock. When people talk about Kamala like she was great, she was a piece of shit. They're both pieces of shit. We need to start realizing the Democratic and the Republican are both shit, period. This country needs a third party. That's it. You need something else, because this isn't fucking working. And they're using religion in the most insidious ways to control. So, any other, thank you, Soul Sister 369. But this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about reclaiming the truth about Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. Honestly, what I see happening, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know it will, there will be wise circles of highly loving, humble, telepathic human beings as this planet turns into 5D energy, and there will be a reference to these books, these ancient harbingers of abuse that people call holy books, and they will download what was lost. Many of us are downloading visions of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, snippets of their life, like small, like little footage, like from a little video camera, right? And eventually the whole entire story will be told, and that will be the writings that we protect and we honor. And we might have a library of books of this shit, this propaganda, as a warning to the future generations. Yeah, this is what they believed in. This is what we walked away from. Just so you know what happened here 300 years ago before you were born, 5D being fully established in this planet. But we keep these books because we would never burn the history of humanity. What we'd rather do is have these books there for you to read as a warning. As a warning never to go back. And that will include probably the lost writings of Atlantis, Lemuria, our beginnings, how we were made on a higher scale, on a more detailed scale. And we will have these libraries for our future kin, And that's what I see in the new world. I don't see us burning books. I don't see us burning shit. I don't see us eradicating the horror that was perpetrated in the name of God. So people are waking up, like I said. But the majority of the people here, unfortunately, have taken this as God's word. Can you imagine? These two little, oh my God, these two little awful little men. Incredible, isn't it? And again, like I said, men. And I'm not saying that to disrespect men, you know that. But for us to ever write truly holy books, the component is for the masculine and feminine to co-create those books through deep meditations, deep reflections, deep levels of fasting in grottos and little cabins, fastings that go on for like probably 20 to 30 days, even 40 days, to really be. I remember fasting, my longest was 16 days, but I was fasting on water for 11 days, just 11 days. I'd be power walking. And suddenly, I swear to God, something was happening to my pineal gland where my vision was actually seeing the shimmering life force of trees and small little, geometric patterns, sacred geometry on the leaves in the sky. It was as if a veil was lifting and my pineal gland was being activated. And trust me, I was not smoking pot. I was not drinking alcohol. I was not doing anything at all. I was just fasting on distilled water, a little bit of honey, a little bit of ginger, and a little bit of cayenne to open my vascular system. The honey was to just give me a little sugar so I didn't crash. And I would power walk 3 miles. And I remember on my 11th day telling my beautiful beloved consort, wow, you should see these trees. I was feeling all this energy. So fasting, saging, protecting, meditating, we will start remembering the truth. And we will start writing it down and meeting and laying our downloads together and actually creating holy scripture that is from a place of love, power, and deep excavation into the Akashic records. But I can tell you this, these books here, no, it's a fuck no. It's not going to continue. Because any book that puts down the matrix, what you have between your legs. I learned this from the woman who originally wrote the Terminator and the Matrix. And she said the Matrix is mentioned, where did she say, 7 times in the Bible? And I did a whole little I did a little live on that. I did, the womb is called the Matrix or something like that. You can look it up. There's an elderly lady on the cover. It's on YouTube. I did a whole thing on the Matrix. And the fact that it's almost like they squeezed it out 7 times in the Bible to say that we are the Matrix. We are the portals of life. We are the portals of souls. We are the portals. And that we were still considered substandard. Are you crazy? And this is something that many of us, and I include myself in that, many of us were, I was in so many incarnations. I was a warrior, male. I was a foot soldier. I mean, I've had a lot of lives as, unfortunately, in the warrior class, and I'm not proud of it, by the way. And I saw women as a place to release myself. And so I think I've incarnated as a female for many reasons, but because it's my original self, actually, as a soul. I prefer that form above all others. I've discovered that over the years. But also to right the wrongs of what I co-created as a misogynistic masculine. as a corrupted masculine. So for me, it's not, and this is how I see people who are really unabashedly advocates of injustice, and you go, well, I don't understand you. Like, for example, I did a whole book, and I was out there doing little radio shows and on breast cancer, and the question is always, well, did you have? No, I didn't have breast cancer. I've never had. No one's in my family's ever had breast cancer, but that doesn't mean I don't give a shit about women who have breast cancer. You don't have to suffer something to care about it and to advocate for it, and to talk and to create work that can support women who are walking that path for whatever reason, whether it's genetic or environmental or whatever. And so maybe, we need to start recognizing why we care about what we care about. And kind of saying to ourselves, am I righting the wrongs of things that I did in 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years ago? And that's okay, though. It doesn't make it less powerful. In fact, if anything, it makes it more powerful, because here you are advocating. Maybe you were a former inquisitionist. You were putting people at the rack, and now you're righting those wrongs and going, well, what was wrong with why did I do that? And we're seeing how evil is taught. It's either by environment, okay, and exposing babies to violence until you rewire their brain. Why do you think video games, war video games that are so inappropriate, it's outrageous? Why people are saying, oh, I'm going to do this and it'll be so much fun to do the KILLING. And you're like, what? Hang on. Did you just say you're going to have fun doing that? Well, yeah, because to them it's a video game. They put on some rock music with the headphones and they just go for it. And it's just fun. It's a video game. That is by design. The corruptness of many people's evil and their ability to be cruel and their ability to do shit that's unhinged, including the ability to watch somebody being grabbed, for example, and not do shit. Like they've done social experiment where they're grabbing a little boy in a crowded fucking street and no one does anything. They keep walking, turning around like they're bothered, but it's not my business, not my kid. Okay? So it's by design. People are trained, you have to have school or certificates to talk or teach about stuff. Same with movies, trained everyone to think it's just a movie, but so many messages in our faces. Exactly. Yes, the Matrix is in the Bible. Yes. So, this is intense, right? There's a lot going on here. And the fact that they had the ability. So apparently by 1909, right? The Scofield Bible was being promoted. 1909, and as a woman, you should be pissed. Okay, I'm straight up pissed off. Okay, wait. So you guys added this shit, and I'm going to repeat myself, but you never repaired the damage that Pope Benedict and Pope Gregory in the Middle Ages did, right? In creating this false persona, an insult, calling her a whore. Wow. But yeah, let's put in the rapture because, it's so comforting. And you have to ask yourself, and we know this, right? I mean, 1909, it's a patriarchy. It's a dominant, awful, cruel, where a man could beat the shit out of his wife, break her jaw, do whatever the fuck he wanted, and get away with it. The cops would say, look, Billy Boy, next time, maybe be a little easier on her. That kind of thing. And there are countries that still promote that shit, as you well know. There's a girl recently, I forgot her, Rebecca something, who was violated with a 7-minute video, right? Brought it to the cops in England, right? They didn't do shit until she went social media public, okay? And until women fucking took it and made it viral, right? And she was told not to show his picture, but by then everyone had caught it and reposted it. By the time she took hers down, it was up and fucking going. And he finally was arrested. Took fucking probably 2 months, or I don't know, 6 weeks, whatever. The minute she brought that video in, He should have been arrested within 24 hours. Found and arrested. You know that, I know that. There was a 13-year-old boy in Morocco that was violated by 14 men. When he walked in to the Moroccan police, they laughed at him like he was stupid and shamed him and did not give him medical care. If that is this is why I don't like religions, because they don't have integrity. It doesn't have integrity. Integrity is taking care of the most vulnerable. And if your religion can't do that for the most vulnerable, a 13-year-old violation, a young woman's violation, did you notice one's Muslim, one's Christian? So it's not about one religion is better than the other, is it? It has nothing to do with it, does it? We can't go there, can we? Oh, well, in Morocco, that's how. No, it happened to this woman in England. The fact that women are being raped at a level that's fucking unhinged in Europe, in the UK, in Ireland, and in this country, the fact that we are having kids disappear like what's happening now, right? The ice cream truck at fucking 1 o'clock in the fucking morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. What is that about? What's that about? And I was saying, well, 80 kids in Virginia have disappeared. Okay, but I was saying, well, where are the footages of the parents screaming and yelling? Because typically parents go to social media. Kids in Virginia have disappeared. Okay, but I was saying, well, where are the footages of the parents screaming and yelling? Because typically parents go to social media. I get demonetized constantly. So if I get a $5 check a month, I'm lucky. It's a happy day, But my point is, some people literally are banking on this shit. So they don't care what they say. That's the other thing about lack of integrity with these content creators. They have none. And so you have to be careful. So on the 80 kids, disappearing, I was told, but I still haven't come across a parent who said, my kid's gone, what's going on? Okay? Some weird things are happening. A lot of people are suffering from mental illness, and part of it is because they're taking too many happy pills, let's be honest. And their minds are not exactly good. We got millions of dollar building going out, but one more homeless than we ever seen. Disgusting, exactly. And what are these kids doing out on the streets at night unsupervised? Yeah, even my generation, when the lamps came on, when the sun set, come home. That was it. We were not hanging out in any street unless it was Halloween. On Halloween, we were left to run the wild on the streets, right? And the streets were, suburban. Okay, so it was not exactly urban. It was suburban. And nothing was going to happen to you. And you had to be street smart. You still had to be street smart. But the sun set, and the sun sets at 8:30 at night or whatever, or 8, and we would be home, and that was the end of it. We'd have dinner and we'd go to bed. That was it. And now you are seeing fucking kids that are 9 years old that are, it's fucking 10, 11 o'clock at night or later. And how many toddlers have you seen literally wandering the street at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because the parents are high or drunk? So I don't know what to say. Maybe that's always been a problem. I don't know. I really don't. But I do know this. There was an ad, and people have questioned this in the Gen X, millennial generation. There was ads. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? That was not a joke. So clearly people were still hanging out in the streets. And I remember one of my friends who was a teacher who said that there was this kid's parents were fighting. She was like 12. Her sister was like 6 or 7. And they called her on a payphone. And it was raining. And they were in that payphone all night until the morning came. And then she dropped off her sister in the house. Her parents were passed out, whatever. And she took herself to school. She hadn't slept all night. So there are some fucked up parents out there. There's no doubt. But you've got, these clean cut, Christian Zionists who really think that the price of a child in Palestine, much less a busload every day passing away, is worth the price of their God, their rapture. Their rapture. Did you get that? And they're so tight that they can't fathom that their very lack of empathy will put them in their own purgatory when they do drop their bodies. There's going to have to be a lot of atonement, I'll tell you that. Yeah, all neighbors knew each other. Exactly. All the neighbors knew each other. You just call dead parents numbing out and don't care. Yeah, that's what it's like. If you know you're going to be just get your tubes tied and get a vasectomy. Just be honest. Just say, I don't want kids no matter what the fuck. I don't want kids. Good, then get this surgery. And call it a day. But do not produce any more children. It's not fair. It's not okay. We need, and the irony, and this is what's happening right now, and I was talking to a friend of mine about this, is the people who should have kids, the starseed spiritual badasses that should have kids aren't having them. They're not. Some of the reasons are there's no money, but most of the reasons is I'm not bringing a kid in this fucking planet. Are you crazy? So it's consciousness. It's like non-selfishness. It's like saying, no, I can't have kids here. But the irony is people like you having kids would create an incredible tribe of starseed powerhouses and healers. Meanwhile, it's the asshole druggies and the people who are not mentally there having children, having 6 or 7, and not using contraception, not even considering it, and just having children. And I may sound rude, but what my point is, everyone has the right to have children. And this is me being politically correct. And I certainly don't want any governments involved in sterilization, which they've done in this country, in China with the Tibetans, and Israel with the Ethiopians. It's not alleged, that it's known. And that's not fucking okay. What we need to do is educate people and give them, because when you give them ethics and morality and empathy, they're less likely to just have kids willy-nilly. And do you understand the reason why many starseeds are not having them is because of the education, the empathy, and the compassion, and the responsibility? That's why they're not having them, because they're educated. And the ones that aren't are doing this. And now we have these kids that are just traumatized. By the time they're 14, they have PTSD. And they're so fucked up that it will take them years, if ever, to come out of that kind of trauma. Okay? So that's what's happening in our planet. The irony is the people who should have kids aren't, and the people who should not have are. That is, it's just hard raising kids in these days, but I'm teaching kids their gifts. Beautiful. It's fantastic that you're doing that. But if they go back into a hellhole, and I'm going to call it out, CP, Child Protective Service, have done nothing good for children's welfare. The fact, I remember there was a documentary on the fact that kids get, have you seen this documentary where these kids are actually walking down a catwalk for potential parents to adopt them? Have you ever seen that? And there was a single white man who decided to adopt a 14-year-old black boy. And within a year, he turned him back in. And I don't know what happened to that little black teenage boy. What happened? Why would a single white man want to adopt a child and then turn him back? What was he doing? Was this pedestry? And the boy didn't want to, or he got hurt, and now he's so ashamed he doesn't want to say it, because we are so good at shaming people who are at the most vulnerable. Look at what happened with the Moroccan boy. The cops laughed when he walked in for justice. They laughed at him. I could say more, but I can't on this channel. Okay? So the injustice that we're seeing, these religious They better do better, because if you guys are going to keep editing your little fucking holy books, and edit them so that there are justice for all, equality for all, empowerment of women, and you reject and you make it loud. You're loudly saying we do not consent to violence against our children, against our women, against anyone. You do that, you will face the consequences, and they will be harsh. And these religious leaders are not doing that, and they're not sitting down to have meetings with each other. The Muslims should be meeting with the Jewish rabbis, with the Christians, with the Protestants, with the Scofield Bible thumpers. They're not meeting. A segregated religious orders is dangerous. We can see that now. So many men are preaching that the education of women are why all is toxic, crazy. No, the education of women is why we're walking into 5D. We are the matrix. And these motherfuckers better start understanding it. They are in on it to fill their pockets. Yeah, of course, it's always about money. It's always about money. And there are women who actually are so brainwashed themselves. They are the servants of the patriarchy. They take the knee and they support. And this is why The Handmaid's Tale is particularly interesting. I only watch the movie. I don't want to fucking see a TV show fucking season after season because I don't want to be wired that way. That would fuck me up. I'd be so mad. It wouldn't be good. But I mean, look at how the women are supporting the women's oppression. Come on now. Let's do, okay. Come on now. And trad wives aren't the problem. Okay, trad wives that we're seeing, like Ballerina Farm, and those women are doing their own whatever the hell, they're doing their own thing. They're doing their own thing. I remember the incident of the egg apron for her birthday. Did he give her that? Didn't he? I don't know. Maybe he gave her a $10,000 Bulgari ring. And we don't know it. And she never said anything. Or maybe he is that stupid that he gave her an apron, egg apron. I don't know. I don't know. I do know that the men that are coming up, being raised by mothers who are not teaching men how to shop with their women. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is shit you teach your boy when he's 3-4 years. He's going to Anthropology with you. He's going to Free People. He's going to Macy's. He's learning how to shop. He's learning how to get involved. What do you think of that? What do you think? Yeah, you're teaching your son to learn how to shop, how to buy gifts for his woman, just like you would when you take your daughter shopping. She's learning, we're going to get daddy a tie. She's learning. And because most men don't do that, they don't teach their son how to buy silk brawn panties for his wife with his 14-year-old son. Yeah, I'm buying mommy a beautiful gift. It's time, you're 14. It's made out of silk, it's $300. It's for your mommy. You might say that's inappropriate. I'd say, no, that's called training. Training. Somebody has to do it, because these men are growing up. I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. I don't know what to buy you. I mean, it's insane. Insane. Especially when I compare men today with my father, who was born in 1923 and who could do all of that. He was working with jewelry designers and fashion designers and sitting there at the atelier working on putting shit together for gifts for my mom. I watched it. So it's not, men. No. Where did he learn that? He taught himself. So if you don't have that kind of training, then go figure it out yourself. Figure it out. And there are too many men who aren't doing it. So they don't know how to support a woman. They don't know how to honor a woman. They don't know how to be so good for her that even though she's independent and she doesn't need him for his money, he gives her so much that, and of course it's reciprocal. She does too. She gives him as much as he gives her. But typically these men out there are just absolutely clueless, and it's absolutely something I will not tolerate. If you don't know, ask your best female friend. Ask your sister, and if your sister is clueless, then I don't know how you were raised. I'm sorry. At this point now, my hands are up in the air. And because men, and you might think, well, this is not really important, and I will not agree with you, because this is called nurturing. This is called, I care for my woman so much, I'm going to do this and this. I know her style. I know her bra size. I know her shoe size. I know her dress size. I know what she likes. I know her favorite colors. Because she knows her favorite colors. Do you know that when my twin and I broke up, there were things I was putting in my shopping cart that I knew he loved, and I had to put it back because I didn't like it, but he did. And I'd start tearing up because I realized he's not here. I don't need to buy this anymore. He's not here. That's what he loved. I don't love this. In other words, women are unconsciously, somatically, we train ourselves or we absorb what a man loves. We know his favorite colors. We know his favorite foods. We know the style of clothing and why he likes this pair of socks over those underwear or whatever. And you men who don't learn this is why you guys are lonely. And so you're throwing money to OnlyFans. But going back to sexual assaults, who's raising those men? I keep going back to that. And everyone's saying Handmaid's Tale, and I keep going, yeah, well, look at the women, and look at the characters of the women supporting the oppression. And when women are dogmatically embracing and devoted to these weird religions and these weird religious beliefs that are, in my opinion, fascist, then you are going to raise fascist sons and daughters who are absolutely clueless. I was just on a live where a man said women are good for dishes and sandwiches. A viewer, it was insulting. We pay attention. Well, and a man has to pay attention. And I'm not here to brag, but I am going to tell you why my twin, because it's important. I'm going to tell you about my father. Fuck my twin, because I think it's better that way. This way, okay? Because even though my father was cheating, because I'm not going to put him on a pedestal and say, oh, my dad never cheated. No, my father was cheating, okay? But let me tell you this. I remember him buying a little emerald in Rome. We moved to Hong Kong, and he had a fur coat made. I still have it. This fur coat he had made for my mom. He asked me, do you? And I, of course, I was a vegetarian at the time. I was like, no, I don't want any fur coats on my body. Are you kidding? And they knew that about my personality. But he had a mink coat made for her. He designed it. He chose the pelts, the lining. I was there. But he had this little emerald ring he had bought, and it was a little square emerald. And he found zircons, 2 pear-shaped zircons and 18-karat gold, and he had it set. And he said to my mom one day, I will change them to real diamonds. And you know what? He kept his word. He did. By the time we were in New York, he had exchanged the zircons for real diamonds, pear-shaped. The ring was worth $45,000. Some shit went down with my dad. It was a very bad situation. And my mom was able to sell that ring for $15,000. Damn near 1/4 its value. What's my point to this? My point is, he taught himself. You don't go to fucking Costco to buy a diamond ring for a woman. You go to a jeweler and you find the diamond and you're getting it wholesale and you do 18 karat gold and you sit there with him designing the ring. Get your head out of your ass. If you're poor and you have no money, then you give your mother, your lady, a foot massage, a neck massage. You brush her hair. You take a shower with her. You wash her hair. You give her a bath. You ask her, when are you coming? You draw her bath. You hire a maid for the month to clean the house for a thorough cleaning as a surprise. It's not difficult to make a woman smile, actually. And it's certainly, your mother, if your mother didn't teach you how to do that, then teach yourself. It's inexcusable. My father did not have a mother or a father. He was raised by his grandmother. And she was so severe in she was like a Spartan because she had to be. That he didn't learn that from her. They had a good relationship, but he didn't learn that. She didn't teach him that. She just taught him injustice, justice, and she taught him about Jim Crow. So he understood his place in the world. And my point is that he went out and learned. He learned from, he watched people. And he became, if nothing else, that's why she stayed, because he was loving, he was nurturing, he was generous. His flaw was he was a cheater. But she could turn away because at least she knew, in her mind, at that period, the mentality of women of that era was that men cheat, men need more sex than women. That whole thing was in her head. But he gave her the world. You know what I mean? Like he didn't give those gifts to mistresses. He gave it to his wife, to his children. Unlike most men today, they give all that to their mistresses, not to their wives. And so there's no excuse to this. So these Bible thumping people, these and these other religions, which I won't mention. There's a litany. Men better do better, because you guys are failing. You're failing the children. Most importantly, you're failing your children, which is you're failing your future. And you're failing the woman who gave you birth and the woman who's going to give birth to your sons and daughters. And that's inexcusable. And if you do not seriously, if you don't know how to take care of a woman, at some point, I'm not joking, I'll actually set up a class for men to learn how to do that. And for women, same. Women lack certain things. There's certain things they don't know how to do, which is the weirdest thing. You know what I mean? There's certain things women need to learn, but they're more about compliments than anything, really. Whereas men, it's compliments, it's gifts, it's attention, it's the gift of your time. With women, it's mostly compliments. You know what I mean? It's mostly that. That seems to be something that isn't given as freely. So important to teach boys that no means no if there is no clear consent to a no. I mean, the concept of no means no, it shouldn't be a discussion. It should be obvious. Right? I mean, the fact that little boys have the balls to go up to grown-ass women in their 20s and trying to, pick them up or make weird sexual comments and things of that nature. I can tell you that when I was a kid, 14-year-old boys were not going up to grown-ass women doing that, but they are now. They are now. They're emboldened in ways that is shocking. So we are creating a rape culture. We are. That's what's happening. And we need to really be very, very serious about that. So it isn't that no means no. It's that, let me ask you this, little 14-year-old boy. If there were 14 men out to get you and you said no, what would you say? Would no mean no, or was it just an option? See, we are not teaching that. Like that little boy that was violated in Morocco. Every fucking kid from the age of 9 to now, or 8 to now, to whatever age they are, should know that fucking story. And then I would ask them, as a mother, now tell me, how does no mean no? Don't you understand the way you teach people how to be better human beings is empathy? They have to live it. If you were that 14-year-old boy, what would you have done? What would you have felt? Yes, the child will cry. Good, let them cry. But we're constantly protecting these boys. Constantly. And mean girls is a real thing. If a mean girl came up to you, because you're a mean girl, right? And bullies create bullies. Let's be honest. You can't talk to the parents. They're fucking assholes. And a lot of teachers, superintendents, principals, they're assholes. They're little fucks who never had power, and now they have a little bit of power, and they abuse it absolutely. We can't bend a knee to authority because there's an authority. There's a little sign that says principal's office or super. No, put to foot to ass. No. That's why this shit's happening. Because there's no fucking respect. And most importantly, before there's respect, there has to be empathy. So that no means no isn't even a conversation, because you put your kid through the Moroccan child story or any other story. That's the responsibility of parents, because I tell you what, the schools aren't going to do ever. They're doing weird shit with sex ed in school. Weird, inappropriate shit. Let's be honest. Okay? And we went too far with having people wearing string bikinis who are posing as women. I'm just going to be straight. You may not like me. I don't give a fuck. You don't do that to fucking kids. The first time I went to a burlesque show, I was in my 40s. The first time I saw a stripper, I was 18. I used to hang out with them. This is not something you force into a 5-year-old or 9-year-old. I'm sorry. But you should force the story of the Moroccan boy. The story of the girl, I forgot who she was. She was from Afghan, who wanted to get an education that got acid on her face. And that story should be told to boys and girls. They should be, I'm sorry, there should be, they have these big meetings in these auditoriums. There's usually a big screen. Fucking do a documentary and put it on for a half hour and then questions and answers, and then go back to class and have individual group conversations. That's how you teach a society to be kind to each other, and where rape is no longer acceptable, and it's a rare occurrence of some other mental problems. But right now it's growing. It's not getting better. With empathy, there will be no starvation problems between sexes, capitalism, or love. Yes, all kids need to know self-defense in these days. Well, I mean, it's not just but I mean, self-defense to me is like a problem. You know what I mean? Self-defense is a problem. But I think every woman should know self-defense. And the problem with women is they don't practice self-defense in their heads. Women are less likely to want to jug a guy's eyes out. They hesitate. It's the hesitation that gets them in the wrong position. It's the hesitation. There was a woman on TikTok for a while, and I don't know where she is anymore, but she talked about how a man who was about 6'2" or 6'3", she looked like she was seriously 120 pounds, probably 5'5", I'm not kidding. And he walked into her bedroom, and she was completely caught off guard, obviously, right? And she went hand-to-hand combat with him and fucking beat the fuck out of him. And she'd never been trained. Okay? And I really was watching her, but, TikTok is like removing people we follow who really have powerful things to say, by the way, I've noticed. All the assholes that maybe I followed like early on when I first got this account, I'm starting to find them and removing them because I don't want to hear their shit. I'm like, why didn't I follow this person? What the fuck was wrong with me? But anyway, I can't find her to save my life. But I was talking to my son. I mean, I'm not kidding, because rape is on the rise. And I was talking to my son about, if he grabs me from behind the hair, he said, you twist it around and you go right for the kneecap. It'll hyperextend. And then he says, and then you go for the throat and you fucking go as hard as you can to collapse the larynx. So, I mean, we're having this conversation. Why? Because even though I'm my age, it's not about how beautiful you are, how slim, how fit, your beautiful body, what you're wearing. Clearly, it's not what you're wearing. And this is a concern. And it's not, oh my God, you're being negative, you're going to bring it up to you. No, I started having that conversation internally because all my friends in high school were being on a chain gang constantly. And that was in the late 70s. So I've been around that block a long time. I've always been very, very blessed not to have experienced that, thank God. But my point is, it's the willingness to go fucking all out. It ends right fucking here, motherfucker. You want to try that shit with me? You have to use your rage, your absolute rage, and like it has to be a force. But with the same breath, we are creating abusers. Okay? And when people go after Bonnie Blue, which, trust me, I'm not a fan, okay? But we got one Bonnie Blue and 2,000 men who are standing in line on a staircase, and there were about 10,000 men who applied. So the Bonnie Blues of the world are an exception, but it is not ruining the world. We have to ask ourselves, who are these men? Who raised them? There was an incident where a mother literally tracked down her son and fucking walked in and said, what the fuck are you doing here? And she was, I'm trying to remember, but I think she was from the Caribbean. And she dragged his ass out. So we're not teaching empathy. And so if classrooms aren't going to do it, right, then that means that we are responsible. Each of us, if you're going to have a kid, Your job is to have a lot of fucking conversations. And it's not how was school. It's how was school. We're going to go on a hike. I brought you a sandwich. Come on, let's go. And the lessons begin. The lessons of life without them knowing they're having lessons. We're responsible. We can't harm another with empathy. We would feel the pain we would inflict. No, there's two levels to you. In empathy is for when you are in a peaceful mode, okay? But then there's rage, because see, so listen, you need to learn how to split yourself as a woman. It's very important. You've got the feminine, that is the empathic, right? For the masculine, he has the empathic, right? He'll let's go with the masculine. Okay, let's do that. So the masculine is taking a kitten that's tiny, it's like maybe a pound, and he treats it like it's the most fragile thing. But the minute somebody comes in to harm his kitten, himself, his family, game over. He becomes a violent, vicious, savage warrior, and it's game over. Do you understand? As we as women need to be able to do that. We need to be able to do that. And this is something you practice in your head. You don't wait till it happens, because you'll be frozen. You'll be, oh fuck. Your heart will start beating and you won't know what to do. But you have to, in your head, practice it and go, okay, this is what I would do. And it ends here. And again, not to scare you guys, but it's insane what's happening, and it's gaining traction. In 2000, there would have been in various countries, check it out yourself, 8,000 rapes here, 6,000 there, 2,000 there. Today, it's in the double fucking digits. So something's wrong. Something's definitely wrong. And I'm not going to blame porn. I'm going to blame the family life and the absence of teaching, philosophy, the nature of good and evil, and bringing real life situations to the dinner table at the that's right, in the family table, to say, did you hear about the Moroccan boy? Oh, it's not appropriate at the dinner table. Well, when is it? When is it appropriate? At what point are you going to teach your kids? When? And there's also the fact that some of your kids, some of you that have kids, those kids aren't going to do well in public schools. They're just not going to do well in schools. And you have to be willing to say, fuck this. Let's figure out how to homeschool you. Maybe after work, you hear, these are all the lessons you need to do today. I'll check on you on my lunch. I'm at work. And tonight we'll go over everything you've done. And if you have not done what I asked you, the consequences is me putting you back in public school. It's your choice. So either you do what I'm asking you to do, or you're going back to public school. I have no other choice, because I need you to get educated. And we'll do a lot of fun things this weekend that we can add to your curriculum that won't feel like a curriculum. It'll just be fun shit. But you'll get credit for it. So, parents need to be more involved, because if you actually expect these systems to educate your kid, you're going to have a lobotomized child. So that's what I meant, Sherry, to tell you. So it's the ability to go warrior mode. And I think most women aren't. And my brother used to teach rape victims, because they always, I hate to say it, most of the time they had been raped. And that's why they were going to his training, combat training. And he was the guy who wore the big suits, the fat suits, so they could just pummel him. But he said it was a psychological training of knowing, somatically just reacting to the situation so that they weren't victimized again. He said at the time, this would have been in the early 90s, at the time it was like 75 to 80% had been already violated, and the other percentage was of women who wanted to do preventive training. Okay? So why am I saying all this? Well, because I just read you the Schofield Bible, and how rapture, how dogma, how fascism against women is never edited out. It's enforced. And people can tell me, well, this religion's a lot better than that religion. I don't give a shit. The society we live in is showing us something different than what you're going to, propose. And I can't keep staying silent, because if I'm blessed, I'll have a granddaughter, and I want her to walk unmolested. There was a woman running at 4:30 in the morning. One of them, of course, disappeared. Never to be found again. I think, she wasn't found again. And another woman is running, and people are asking her, why are you running at 4:30? It's fucking pitch dark. It's dangerous as fuck. And she said, it's my body. I'll do whatever I want. Point taken. She's absolutely right. She should be able to walk at 4:30 in the morning without being molested. But she was on camera with a man hiding, like walking behind her, and she was running. She made it. She was able to get home safely. But she's going to continue walking at 4:30 in the morning. And I'll tell you something that's dumb about that. Because when a man wants to harm you, he will look at your schedule and one day he'll be prepared. Now, that's the world we live in, unfortunately. And what we need to do is architect a world where a woman can take her dog or herself for a walk at 2 o'clock in the morning because the moon is so beautiful and she wants to just take a walk. We have to create that society because it's not here. And women are disappearing left and right because they really want to feel. Like I told you about my friend who's a shaman, and she camps out, she goes out camping. And I said, are you packing? She goes, you fucking A, I'm packing. And ever since I got my dog, now I finally sleep all through the night camping. She used to not sleep. This is the world you masculines with your little religious dogma have created. Where women are packing, they need a dog to bark mornings, and women are not allowed to walk. Basically, it's an unsaid law where we're all saying, girl, you're not safe. And that's the world you've created for women. Because you're fucking bullshit. Because you're not calling men out. Because you're not speaking the truth. You're not urgent enough. And because you are all red pillars or you're all Andrew Tate fucking fans. And you're angry at women. Because women are finally angry because they've been raped and forced to marry their rapists. And it goes on and on and on. And that's all I'll say. And many of you women have raised these motherfucking monsters. So fucking take that pill and swallow it and do better. And fucking repair the damage. Because when I was a kid, I was surrounded by boys raised by 2 family households. So it wasn't broken family bullshit. These came from, I was going to private schools. These boys were being raised by mom and dad who were lawyers and psychiatrists and psychologists and this, that, and the other. And they were harming girls in my high school. And this was common in many of the high schools. I went all over the only high school I never saw that go down was the one in Hong Kong. But the ones in California was happening. The ones in New York City were happening. So at some point you have to ask yourself, and now it's 2025 and the shit's getting worse. Who's doing it? Who's raising these people, these monsters? And that's my point. So the concept of no means no is much deeper than that. It means literally looking for articles or finding articles. Because now social media, it's always in your face anyway. Pick one and say, if that was you, what would you do? How would you feel? Tell me more about it. Mommy, I don't want to talk about it. No, I need you to talk about it because we need to talk about this. Because every human being is responsible for other human beings. And we are going to talk about it. So if you don't want to talk about it now, but we're going to talk about it later. You don't let young people walk away from tough conversations. And you might say, well, Tony, you're being a bully. And I'd say, I'm trying to raise a fucking safe man on the planet. I'm trying to raise a safe woman on the planet, not some mean girl that's going to drive a young girl to suicide because she's calling her a slut and coming up with rumors. That takes diligence, time, and sometimes it's forcing conversations that they may not be comfortable with. But we are responsible for what we're actually raising out here. We're responsible. And that's it. And I know it's difficult for people to get. Does this all stem from the Adam and Eve and thinking women are less than? Well, yeah, it does. It has a lot to do with the Eve syndrome. It has a lot to do with the Lilith syndrome, succubus syndrome, the Jezebel syndrome, which is actually not even a real fucking story. Queen Jezebel was a queen. It's the lack of it also stems from men's desires. Women being sexualized. In the 1970s, there were two types of books. Barbara Cartland was a very famous British author who wrote romance stories, and all of the girls were always virgins before, they were virgins when they got married. So there was no sex in the books, none. In books written by Kathleen Woodhouse and some other authors, I'm trying to remember, from the 70s, the heroine was raped by the hero, and then eventually they married, and they had this contentious type of twin flame, you could call it shit, and then they fell in love, blah, blah, blah. Swear to God, it started with a violation. Swear to God. And these books are still very much loved by women in my age group. I kid you not. So the concept of violation is quite weird. It's I don't know where it comes from really. But in terms of the absolute contempt that men have for women, it's gotten even worse. It's gotten a lot worse because you've got a class of women who, and a lot of women didn't like me saying that, but we have a class of women who are selling themselves. I remember there's a place in Paris called Rue Saint-Denis. I'm not sure if that's still happening now, but it was at the end of the Pompidou Museum, President Pompidou Museum. And Rue Saint-Denis was a street you'd walk down, and as you progressed down the street, the hookers got more beautiful, younger, this, that, and the other, okay? And you got to understand that women still today, if they don't have education, if they don't have mentorship, if they don't have support, I've even seen women who are aged, they're in their 50s, 60s, still doing sex acts for money to pay the rent. I've had too many of my friends or acquaintances, and I shouldn't say friends, acquaintances, not because I want to separate them, because all my friends have never done that, but so I want to be clear. But all of my acquaintances that I had for, when you're about to develop a friendship and then it just fades away, that kind of thing. Let's put it that way. Many of these women that were damaged, sold themselves so they could pay the rent because they were thing. Let's put it that way. Many of these women that were damaged, sold themselves so they could pay the rent because they were short. I can't tell you how often that happened. And they hate, of course, I hate to say it that way, but of course they hated men. And many of them had dealt with sexual abuse as children. Okay, so the philosophy was, well, it was taken away they took it from me for free, so now I'm going to sell it so that at least I have some control. That was like the way they spun it into their own consciousness. You see what I'm saying? But honestly, the boys today, see, let's go back to what we know, okay? The boys 150 to 200 years ago had massive respect for their mothers and fathers. The level of misogyny, yes, we had a patriarchy, don't get me wrong, and there were some really fucked up things. I know that, okay? But for the most part, if you look at how boys were educated, right? And if you look at books on boys being raised 150, 200 years ago, you see an innate quality of respect for the feminine. You could call it chivalry, right? Opening the door, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. There's a sense of respect, right? And the rogues, the pieces of shit that were looked down on would violate women. But it was not something that, say, the more educated masculine would accept or tolerate. Do you understand? And you have to understand, chivalry was a real thing, okay? Where the concept of loving a woman from afar was acceptable. As a matter of fact, the troubadours who were French were writing poetry about a woman's beauty, grace, this, that, and the other. And most of the women were married, and there was an understanding that he would never, ever bed her. He would never be her lover, but he was allowed to write poetry about her and extol her virtues, blah, blah, blah. So chivalry was something. We have no chivalry now. They don't give a fuck. They'll stand in line for Bonnie Blue, or they'll grab a 14-year-old kid at a Moroccan festival. Do you get me? It's different now. And the question is, why? How did it happen? In terms of going back to the religion, the Catholic religion, as to, basically dehumanizing the feminine because of Adam and Eve, Eve with the fruit of knowledge, and of course Lilith and this and that and the other, absolutely yes. But there was breaks of chivalry and honor. I mean, even in war, Saladin, again, if you didn't watch the movie Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, you see Saladin being an honor. He's an honorable warrior. Even rules of engagement in war. There was a gentleman's agreement on the battlefield, for Christ's sake. Unless you were dealing with absolute fucking unhinged psychopaths. Okay? But if you watch that movie, there's a lot of chivalry in there. A lot of honor. A lot of, in a world that was very brutal. So what's happening right now with masculines, and masculines saying, yeah, as long as, I'll put my drink on her head and she can, blah, blah, my, what. Or, I want a woman that doesn't talk. She needs to be beautiful and not talk. I mean, men are kind of dumb, because if you're going to have a woman that's empty-headed, she's beautiful, and eventually that'll fade away because that's the nature of aging. But if you're going to have a child with a woman that's a bimbo, you're going to have a bimbo kid. You're going to have an idiot kid. It's common sense. So men are actually harming themselves. And the question is, why do you want children? To continue your name, or do you want a relationship with your child? Is it all about ego, my name, my progeny, my heir, my this, my that? Or is it that you want children because you want a relationship with a possible incarnation of a great grandparent from another lineage or whatever? I mean, what exactly do you want kids for? And the sad part is the people who have brains, who really have brains, consciousness, empathy, generosity of heart, all of that, aren't having kids. And so all the people who don't have that are having kids, letting the world, letting the world raise them. They're being raised on the streets of violence, and there's no chivalry, there's no honor, there's no gentleman agreement, there's none of that, all of that. So you've got unhinged. Kids running around doing whatever the fuck they want and putting women in jeopardy. Does that make sense? I kind of mentioned it. We have so much to heal, yes. So, how do we get boys to view girls as people versus objects like patriarchy, misogyny? I just kind of said it. I literally said it, but let me repeat. The story of the Moroccan boy that was raped by 14 men is a good start. Excellent start with a boy that's 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 12 to 13 to 16 years old or 18 years old. That's a great conversation. Because you're not trying to browbeat that boy into, the boy needs to tell you, well, I mean, what happened to him? Did they arrest the 14 men? No. Did he go to the hospital? No. He was laughed at by the cops. Laughed at? Why would they be? Do you understand? These are the conversations that boys are not having with their mothers, single parenting, or double parenting with a two parent household. They're not having these conversations. That should last an hour. Tears, maybe outrage, maybe the kid going, but that's bullshit. That's unfair. Why would that happen to that boy? What did he do to deserve it? Was he gay? No, he's not gay. He's straight. It doesn't matter if he's gay. Doesn't matter. Why does it matter if he's gay or straight? This is teaching kids, boys, empathy and sovereignty of one's body. That's why then when you say no means no, it means something now, instead of just a slogan on a t-shirt. Does that make sense? That's what people aren't getting. Okay? And every blue moon, you'll have a man who was a boy in a broken down, fucked up home that raised himself. And it's extraordinary. It's rare. It's happened. And they are gentlemen. They're beautiful men. They're and to be honest with you, they are so powerful. Like my husband, the father of my son, he was such a gentle giant. But I swear to God, he could squat 400 pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot. He had the biggest hands I've ever seen on a man in my entire life to this day. And he was, in a way, he knew his strength. He could punch a man and probably take his life. So he was always walking away from fights. But if there was anything that would put me or my son in jeopardy, oh, he was no coward. He'd stand there and he would totally give his life for ours. So there are men who have been absolutely betrayed by their own mothers and sisters. He's a great example of that, who raised themselves into good men. And yet his problem was alcoholism, straight up. And he started drinking when he was 15, and I didn't know that. I didn't even realize that until I was well in my 30s. I don't know why I didn't realize. Again, naivete on that level, because you're not, even you can be streetwise and still not see the signs, you know what I mean? And I didn't see the signs. I didn't really understand because he was hiding also. And then I realized it, because it got worse and worse and worse. And that's abuse. It's usually a child. When a man does that, and I've said this again and again, it's abuse. He was abused as a child, physically, sexually, emotionally, whatever, all of the above, you know. And but it still doesn't stop us from, as mothers and fathers, having these hard conversations, you know. And I don't think parents are having conversations with their kids. I swear to God, everything's surface. That's the other thing. Everything is surface, and racism is tolerated in the household. They call it conservative. They call it traditional values. I've called it. I did 2 videos on racism. Personally, if you're going to teach empathy to a child, racism should not be in the home. Period. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what happened to your people. Racism should not be tolerated. That's one way to create empathy and unity, you know. Yeah, but that wasn't meaning it for essay for the boy. No, but no means no, doesn't it? Doesn't matter if it's for a boy or a girl. No means no, doesn't it? And no means no for anyone. By the way, no means no for an animal, because I don't want to be. But you know, a lot of dogs that are saved or rescued or whatever also have that story. Just so you know. So something really nefarious is going on the planet. There's something weird going on. And it's not being addressed. And I'm going to just say, missionaries are so busy trying to thump the Bible, and apparently it must be the Schofield Bible, that they're not teaching people about respect of humanity. Fuck these books. Teach people how to respect other people's right to express themselves. Not teaching people the fear of God. You know, I mean, a very simple universal law is do no harm. It's a really simple one. What does that mean? Do no harm. Well, what does that mean? Don't kill a kitten. Don't torture it and kill it. Oh, do no harm. Don't hurt that woman. Don't throw rocks at a squirrel. Don't bully a child to the point where they take their own life. Do no harm. It's really a simple rule. I mean, it encompasses, don't cheat on your spouse with her brother, sister, best friend. Do no harm. It's just do no harm. That's it. You don't need a list. The list is created as you raise these people into adults, into good adults or toxic, dangerous adults. Does that make sense? So, but that goes hand in hand with the empathy, like you said. So, I think we're getting somewhere, because as you spread out this information, right, as you share a way of seeing things, right, and understanding that for us to create a safe planet for all, the first thing we need to do is literally push these holy books aside, and I'm calling them holy books out of respect for a minute, and it's a laughable respect, and teach philosophy of right and wrong and empathy. And apparently for some people, it needs to be taught. What would you have done if that happened to you? So the story of that boy, it's an easy flow in the week next, talking about Rebecca, who was violated and had it on video for 7 minutes, and your son might say, "Mom, why are you bringing up all this shit?" Or, "Dad, why are you bringing up?" Well, because I want to show you contrast. I want to show you how fucking unjust, and how sexual autonomy and sovereignty, and that your body is your body, and I want to make sure you understand it. And if you ever see anything that's a counter to that, I need you to know that you're safe with me. I'll never judge you, but I need you to tell me. I need you to tell me. I don't care if they tell you that they'll harm you, that they'll harm me, because they fucking won't harm me. In fact, and that is something that we're not telling our kids, because some of the things I have seen, okay, and I'm gonna admit something to you. Many things happened to me. Part of the reason why I never told my dad, who was a very dangerous man in his own right, was because I was afraid of getting him put in jail. Because I knew that if I told him this, that, and it happened with this person, they would no longer be walking the planet. And so what we have to teach our children, right, is that if the perpetrator threatens your life, this life, the other life, there was a babysitter who had threatened the kid that he would annihilate his whole family, and proceeded to unalive, and I hate to use this, the family cat, and buried it. And the kid was so terrified he never told his parents. He was 5. So somehow we have to teach our children that no matter what, we have their back, and they're safe to tell us, and no, we're not going to go to jail. And the problem is, kids in this particular generations are seeing justice not being served, and they're seeing parents taking the justice into their own hands and ending up in jail for 10, 20, 30 years. And you know that. And so the kids know, I don't want to lose mom or dad. I don't want to be the cause of this, that, and the other. And you have to lay it out on the table exactly what they can expect if they tell you. You have to lay it out, and you have to keep your word. You have to keep your word. And I won't tell you the rest because it's inappropriate. But suffice it to say, they have to know that what they say to you, they're safe to say it. And you're not going to go unhinged and go RoboCop on the person, if that makes sense. A lot of women feel this way about telling their man, because then they wouldn't be in jail. And exactly. Yeah. And a lot of women know that if they tell their man, and this is why we're not raising good, strong, powerful men, we're raising weak pussies. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, because you got men who stop wanting to have sex with a woman because she had a baby. Okay, so much less. Imagine a woman coming to her husband and saying, "I was raped by your blah blah blah, whatever," or I some stranger. And you've got good men out here and there, but not only is the woman needing time not to be intimate for a long time, mostly a long time. It could be a year, it could be 2, I don't know. But also, the man now feels like she's been sullied. The average pedestrian mind of a man is that he would feel like she's sullied. And that is a problem based on how that person was raised. Because there are men who would support this woman and stay with her, and this woman's already beating herself up and feeling unclean in her own mind, or if she's feeling guilt, shame, regret, this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Beating herself up. Why did I do that? Why did I go into that Uber? Why did I go, taking a walk at 1 o'clock in the morning when we had a fight? Whatever the hell it is. The woman is going to blame herself in some capacity. But there are some men that will stay and give her sacred space with patience. And we as a society do not support that. We have always shamed the victims. Always. We always shame the victims. And so they feel completely, utterly alone. But I'm looking at a picture of John Nelson Darby. And there's a picture of him that looks really good. It's the one that's been promoted. If you look at the other one where he's looking straight on the camera with a really brooding eyes, he looks evil. Just so you know, I went off topic, but he looks evil. And I'm looking for Cyrus Scofield. I want to see a picture of Cyrus Scofield. Hang on, okay? Cyrus, by the way, Cyrus the Great. Can you imagine? They named him that. He looks... Now, he's the one they said had, some problems. Like he'd done some shit. And he looks like... He's got thin lips. He looks cold. He looks shut down. He looks like an asshole. So both these men... creating the Schofield Bible, if you look at their faces on your screen, if you take a minute, they look like perpetrators themselves. So there you go. Speaking of which. So anyway, I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to upload this. Please look at some of my videos on Yeshua and Mary Magdalena. Please follow me on YouTube. And because God knows what's going to happen now with the with this channel. Who knows, right? With this YouTube thing. I am going to take a break. I may come back to do another live on pulling out a card. My throat hurts and I'm coughing and I need water. But I want to just say thank you. Any last questions, any last remarks that I could read so that it's there on this video? Any question or remarks that you want to leave? Because I really appreciate your wisdoms and your takes on, how you see things. Any questions or remarks? Okay, sending you much love on your journey. Namaste, be well. Oh, wait. You had a question. Those patterns will end. Well, they won't end on their own, though. We have to be actively involved. They will not... We have to curate the garden that we want to live in. If you leave a garden unattended, unwatered, unfertilized, uncut, and so forth, it has no rhyme or reason and becomes a field of nothing. If it becomes a wild field that doesn't give us the ability to sit in the garden because the grass is up to our hips, right? And it's not... We have to create a garden, a wilderness that is going to feel like a sanctuary. And that means that when we look at the children we are raising, we have to have these discussions. And you need to get over yourself as a sexual human being. Before you were a mother, father, you were a woman and a man, and you desired each other, and that's why you have a child. It was a sexual act. And for us to teach our children healthy sexual acts, we need to be comfortable with speaking about what is sexually healthy. It's that simple. You know what I mean? All right, much love. Take care. Bye-bye.